"Why is my father carrying your photograph?" Evelyn Whitmore asked as the burned Polaroid slid from the brown wallet and stopped beside Marcus Reed's security badge. The glass door had already locked behind him, and Todd Briggs was ordering him to empty his pockets while 9-year-old Nia gripped her backpack on the other side. Adrian Vale reached for the picture. "That is private family property." Nia stared through the glass. "Dad," she whispered, "that man in the photo is you." 3 hours earlier, Harbor Central Station had smelled of wet concrete, burnt coffee, and the sharp metal dust that rose whenever the late train dragged its brakes against the rails. Marcus stood beneath the fluorescent lights in his faded Navy uniform, one hand wrapped around his red coffee thermos while the other adjusted the strap of Nia's backpack. Her after-school sitter had canceled, and Marcus had no one else to call. So Nia sat behind the security desk with colored pencils, homework sheets, and strict instructions not to leave the marked waiting area. "Last train, then home," Marcus told her. "And pancakes tomorrow? If the electric bill doesn't eat them first." Nia smiled because she knew he was joking only halfway. At 10:39, Marcus noticed something beneath a bench near track 6. A brown leather wallet lay beside a silver soda can, close enough to a shallow puddle that one corner had already darkened with water. He crouched, used a folded paper towel to lift it, and checked the floor around it for anything else that might have fallen. He did not open the brass clasp. Instead, he carried it directly toward Lost and Found, passing 2 security cameras, a closed newsstand, and the glowing station clock above the main concourse. Nia looked up as he approached. "Somebody lost it? Looks that way. Are they coming back?" Marcus glanced at the wallet in his hand. The leather was worn smooth around the edges, but the stitching was hand-finished, and a faint medical adhesive mark clung to the back as if it had recently been labeled in a hospital or care facility. "People come back for the things that matter," he said. At the counter, Marcus wrote the time, location, and condition of the wallet on the lost property form. He placed it beside the logbook without checking the cash, cards, or identification inside. Todd Briggs emerged from the security office, his tie loosened and his expression professionally blank. "I'll take it from here." Marcus kept one finger on the form. "Sign the transfer line first." Todd's mouth tightened for less than a second. Then he signed. Marcus turned toward Nia, expecting to collect her things and clock out. That was when a black town car stopped outside the station entrance. Evelyn Whitmore entered in a cream-colored coat, Adrian moving half a step behind her with his phone already in his hand. She said the wallet belonged to her father, Robert Whitmore, and that it had been missing since his medical transport passed through the station. Todd lowered the glass barrier before Marcus could leave. "Routine verification," he said politely. Marcus heard the lock click. He placed his keys, phone, and personal wallet on the counter, then stepped between Todd and Nia. "You can check me. My daughter stays outside this." Evelyn opened the brown wallet. The loose lining lifted under her thumb, and the Polaroid fell free. Adrian moved first, but Evelyn caught the photograph before he could turn it face down. Her gaze traveled from the smoke-stained young man in the picture to the scar circling Marcus's wrist. Then Todd looked into the wallet, checked a printed inventory sheet, and said quietly, "There's supposed to be a blue envelope in here. $800. It's gone." $800? Marcus repeated. Todd kept his eyes on the inventory sheet. "That is what should be here." Then check the cameras. The fluorescent lights hummed above them, bleaching the color from Marcus's faded Navy uniform and sharpening every tired crease near his eyes. On the other side of the glass, Nia stood so still that the zipper pull on her backpack stopped trembling. Adrian Vale stepped closer with the calm expression of a man about to offer help. "Mr. Reed, no one is accusing you of anything," he said. "We are simply trying to resolve a discrepancy before it becomes more serious." He placed a 2-page form on the counter and turned it so Marcus could read it. His name had already been typed across the top. Beneath it, a sentence stated that Marcus had retained the wallet outside camera view for approximately 9 minutes before surrendering it. Marcus read the line twice. The station clock above the concourse clicked forward to 10:46. "I never had it for 9 minutes. This is not a confession. It says I accept responsibility. It says you cooperated. Adrian's voice never rose. That made the words feel colder. The paper smelled faintly of hot toner, as if it had been printed only moments earlier. Marcus rested 2 fingers beside the signature line but did not pick up the pen. Todd opened Marcus's personal wallet, inspected the few folded bills inside, then moved toward the red thermos and Nia's backpack. Marcus shifted between them. You can search my things. The backpack was in the area. It belongs to my daughter. Children pick things up without understanding their value. Nia lowered her eyes. One of her colored pencils had slipped through the half-open zipper and landed on the tile, rolling until it touched Todd's polished shoe. He did not bend to pick it up. Marcus did. He crouched slowly, placed the pencil back in the side pocket, and zipped the bag closed with careful fingers. She stays outside this, he said. Todd glanced at Adrian, not Evelyn. Adrian offered a small, sympathetic nod. We all understand how difficult this must feel. But if you refuse a routine check, people may misunderstand your intentions. Marcus looked through the glass at his daughter. People already have. For the first time, Evelyn's gaze moved away from the Polaroid. She studied the form, then the lost property slip Marcus had completed in blue ink. The time on his slip read 10:42. The printed statement claimed the wallet had been out of view beginning at 10:31. Who confirmed the 9 minutes? She asked. Adrian answered without looking at the page. Security timeline. Has anyone reviewed the footage? Todd has begun the process. Todd cleared his throat. The relevant angle may not cover the entire route. Marcus kept his voice level. There are 2 cameras between track 6 and this counter. Todd's eyes narrowed slightly, as if a security guard was not supposed to know where cameras were mounted. You handle doors and disturbances, Mr. Reed. Let us handle evidence. The words were polite, but their meaning was plain. Marcus could guard the building, carry the lost wallet, stand in the cold, and work until midnight, but he was not supposed to understand the system judging him. Nia stepped closer to the glass. Is my dad losing his job? No one answered her at first. Adrian finally bent his head toward her with practiced gentleness. Your father is helping us clear up a misunderstanding. Nia looked at the word termination printed near the bottom of the page. Then why does that say he can be fired? Marcus saw Evelyn's expression tighten. He reached for the document, folded it once, and placed it back on the counter. I am not signing a story somebody wrote before they watched what happened. Adrian's smile thinned. Refusing may force us to involve law enforcement. Then involve them after you preserve the footage. That could take time. Truth usually does. A low announcement rolled across the station, followed by the metallic sigh of a train leaving track 4. Evelyn picked up the Polaroid again, but her eyes returned to the inventory sheet. How much was in the envelope? She asked. 800, Todd said. And the envelope? Marcus asked. Todd looked at him. What about it? What color was it? Pale blue. The answer came so quickly that even Adrian turned his head. Evelyn slowly lowered the photograph. On the inventory page in her hand, the missing item was listed only as cash envelope. No color had been written anywhere. Evelyn looked from the inventory sheet to Todd, but Adrian stepped smoothly into the silence. Mr. Briggs may have seen the envelope when Mr. Whitmore's nurse prepared the wallet, he said. Todd nodded once, grateful for the explanation. Marcus said nothing. He watched Adrian collect the unsigned form, watched Todd slide the brown wallet into a clear evidence pouch, and watched Evelyn place the burned Polaroid in a separate sleeve instead of returning it to her father's belongings. 10 minutes later, Marcus's access badge was disabled. His shift was marked under review, and he was escorted through the same glass doors he had guarded for nearly 5 years. Outside, the cold had sharpened. Rainwater gleamed beneath the station lights, and the brakes of a departing bus released a long breath of air that smelled of diesel and wet pavement. Nia walked beside Marcus without speaking, her small hand tucked into his. She waited until they reached the ticket machines before asking, "Did they fire you?" Marcus looked down at the red letters flashing across the machine screen. Card declined. Not tonight, he said. Tonight they decided not to know yet. He checked his paper wallet. 2 employee transit passes rested behind his driver's license, along with $11 and a grocery receipt folded around a photograph of Nia's mother. The passes would take them home. The $11 would cover milk, eggs, and the pancakes he had promised for morning, if he chose carefully. A few feet away, another machine beeped twice. A young woman in a gray diner uniform pressed her bank card against the reader again, while a little boy leaned against her leg, half asleep. Please, she whispered to the machine. Just take it. The screen rejected the payment. Overhead, the announcement for the final eastbound train echoed through the station entrance. The woman searched every pocket of her coat and came up with 3 crumpled dollars and a handful of coins. Mom, are we sleeping here? The boy asked. No, but the shelter closes the door. I said no. Her answer came too quickly, carrying more fear than certainty. Marcus glanced at the station clock, then at the 2 passes in his wallet. Nia followed his eyes. She did not ask him to keep them. She only tightened her hand around his fingers. Marcus crossed to the woman. That train goes near Jefferson Family Center? She looked at his suspended security badge and immediately stepped between him and her son. We're fine. I know. Marcus placed the 2 passes on the metal ledge beneath the screen. These are valid through midnight. The woman stared at them. I can't pay you. I didn't ask. Then how are you getting home? Marcus looked toward Nia. There's a night bus 4 blocks south. The woman's mouth opened, but the boarding warning sounded before she could answer. Marcus pressed the passes into her palm and pointed toward the eastbound platform. Go. That door won't wait because tonight was hard. The boy's eyes had settled on the plastic food container sticking out of Marcus's work bag. Marcus opened it. 1 sandwich remained, flattened at the edges from a full shift beneath his thermos. He wrapped half in a clean napkin and handed it to the child, then gave him the other half when the boy looked toward his mother for permission. Dad? Nia said after they hurried away. That was your dinner. Marcus zipped the empty container inside his bag. It was food. He was hungry. And our passes? They were a ride. They needed one first. Nia considered this with the solemn concentration she usually saved for math problems. Mom would have done that. The words opened a quiet place inside him. Marcus looked down at the rain-dark sidewalk and remembered his wife folding grocery coupons at their kitchen table, always setting aside 1 extra even when they needed everyone themselves. He touched the old watch beneath his sleeve, the one that had stopped keeping perfect time the year she died but that he still wound every morning. Yeah, he said. She would have. Inside the station, Evelyn stood behind the glass entrance with the Polaroid sleeve still in her hand. She had seen Marcus offer the passes. She had also seen him check his own wallet first and understood, from the pause in his shoulders, that he had not given away something extra. Adrian approached behind her. He knows you are watching, he said. Some people become generous the moment power enters the room. Evelyn looked at the wall clock, then at the digital timestamp on the security monitor above the ticket machines. Marcus had handed over the passes 47 seconds before she stepped into view. On the sidewalk, Nia pulled out her old phone to check the night bus schedule. A short video she had recorded while waiting for Marcus to finish his shift began playing by accident, filling the small screen with the lost and found counter, the station announcement, and the glowing clock above it. Marcus reached to stop it, then froze. The time on Nia's video did not match the time printed on the responsibility form Adrian had tried to make him sign. Marcus watched the old phone replay the same 11 seconds twice. What time did you record this? He asked. Right before you came back to get me. Did you change the clock? Nia frowned. I don't know how. Rain clicked against the dark screen while the station announcement in the video repeated beneath the glowing concourse clock. The responsibility form had claimed Marcus held the wallet off camera beginning at 10:31, but Nia's recording showed him still approaching the lost and found counter at 10:41. Marcus did not call Evelyn Whitmore or confront Todd from the sidewalk. He emailed the video to his union representative, saved a second copy, and placed the phone back into Nia's hands. "Don't delete anything," he said. By noon the next day, Evelyn had summoned him back to Harbor Central. This time, Marcus entered through the public doors rather than the employee entrance. His access badge still flashed red against the scanner, and the soft denial tone carried farther than it should have through the nearly empty concourse. A union representative named Carla Ruiz waited beside an independent compliance attorney. Adrian stood near the lost and found counter, his charcoal suit untouched by the long night, while Todd remained behind the glass with his hands folded. Nia sat in the adjacent waiting area with a school worksheet and headphones, close enough to see Marcus but outside the meeting. Evelyn placed 3 clear evidence sleeves on the counter: the brown wallet, the burned Polaroid, and the unsigned responsibility form. "We are separating 2 questions," she said. "Whether you took anything from this wallet, and whether you are the man in this photograph." Marcus nodded. "They should be separate. The photograph does not clear you. I didn't say it did. And helping someone with train fare does not prove what happened at this counter." "No, ma'am." Evelyn paused. His calm did not persuade her, but it denied Adrian the defensive performance he seemed prepared to describe. She turned over the Polaroid. The handwritten date faced Marcus beneath the white station lights. August 28, 2012. "Where were you that day?" she asked. Marcus studied the scorched corner instead of Robert's face. "East Harbor Line." Adrian shifted his weight. Marcus continued. "Electrical fire in the second car. Smoke moved faster than the passengers did." "Were you employed by emergency services?" "No." "Then why were you there?" "I was close enough to hear people inside." The answer was so simple that the room seemed to lose a layer of noise. Evelyn looked down at the young man in the photograph, his face darkened with soot and one wrist wrapped in white gauze. Marcus reached for the chain of custody form, and his sleeve pulled back. A curved burn scar circled the inside of his wrist. Evelyn's fingers stopped on the edge of the photo. Adrian spoke before she could. "Old injuries are not uncommon in security work. We should be careful not to build a story from resemblance." "That's fair," Marcus said. "Then verify it." Todd opened the brown wallet under the attorney's observation. Behind the coin pocket, he found a digital recorder no larger than his palm. Its plastic casing was scratched, the battery compartment stained with pale green corrosion. Adrian exhaled through his nose. "That belongs to Mr. Whitmore. It is not relevant." "It was inside the wallet," Carla said. "It stays in the inventory." "The device has not worked in months," Adrian replied. Evelyn looked at him. "How do you know?" "Your father carried it after speech therapy. I saw him attempt to use it." "You told me you didn't know what he kept in this wallet." Adrian's expression barely changed. "I meant I did not know the complete contents." Todd reached toward the recorder. Marcus lifted one hand without touching it. "Don't turn it on here." Everyone looked at him. "Why not?" Evelyn asked. "Because if it helps me, someone will say I changed it. If it hurts me, someone will say you did. Bag it, sign it, and let an independent technician power it without opening the memory." The compliance attorney nodded and drew a fresh evidence pouch from her case. Marcus stepped back while she sealed the recorder, marked the time, and passed the pen to Evelyn, Carla, and Todd in turn. Adrian did not sign until Evelyn asked him twice. From the waiting area, Nia raised one ear cup. "Dad." Marcus turned. "That little red light was already blinking last night." Adrian's head snapped toward her. "That's not possible," he said. The attorney had not yet connected a battery, but inside the sealed pouch, the recorder's red indicator flashed once, then went dark. The red light vanished before anyone could move. "Leave it sealed," Marcus said. Adrian recovered first. "A failing indicator proves nothing. Then let the technician decide. We should avoid turning a routine property review into a spectacle." The air conditioning clicked on above the counter, and the thin evidence pouch trembled beneath the vent. Evelyn lowered her hand onto the chain of custody form and told the attorney to send the recorder to an independent lab, then ordered a separate reconstruction of Marcus's route through the station. An hour later, Marcus stood near track 6 with Carla Ruiz, Evelyn, the compliance attorney, and a systems technician carrying a tablet. Todd followed several steps behind, his radio clipped neatly to his belt and his expression composed. "Start where you first saw the wallet," Evelyn said. Marcus pointed beneath the third bench, beside the front leg, brass clasp facing the tracks. "You remember that clearly?" Todd asked. "I remember what I check before touching lost property." Marcus crouched without crossing the yellow safety strip. A silver soda can had been placed under the bench as part of the test, but it sat upright. Marcus looked at the technician. Last night it was on its side. It rolled when the train braked. The technician checked the raw platform footage. On the screen, the can spun across the damp tile exactly as Marcus had described. Marcus pointed to a dark stain near the bench. "There was water here. That's why I used a paper towel." The footage showed him tearing a sheet from the cleaning station, lifting the wallet by its edge, and checking the floor for anything that might have fallen free. He never opened the brass clasp. He never stepped into a blind corner. He carried it directly past the shuttered newsstand toward Lost and Found. Nia watched from the public seating area with her headphones around her neck. When the footage showed her father approaching the counter at 10:41, some of the tightness left her shoulders. Evelyn noticed. She also noticed Adrian did not look at the child. At the counter, the technician synchronized the platform camera with Nia's phone video and the station announcement system. The supposed 9-minute gap collapsed to less than 2 minutes. Marcus did not smile. He only asked, "Can you show the original angle after I handed it over?" Todd stepped forward. "We already reviewed that section." "The exported clip," Marcus said. "Not the original. There is no meaningful difference." "Then showing it should be easy." Evelyn looked at the technician. "Open the server file." The raw footage filled the monitor. Marcus placed the wallet beside the logbook, completed the form, and slid both toward Todd. Todd signed the transfer line, lifted the wallet, then turned his back to the camera. For 17 seconds, the wallet disappeared behind his shoulder. Todd folded his arms. "I was attaching an inventory card." Marcus leaned closer, not to Todd, but to the glass partition beside the monitor. Pause at 10:42 and 19 seconds. The technician froze the frame. In the dark reflection of the train window behind Todd, his hand could be seen opening the wallet's inner compartment. A pale rectangle moved from the wallet toward his coat. No one spoke. The wheels of a janitor's cart squeaked once at the far end of the concourse, then stopped. Evelyn slowly placed the Polaroid sleeve on the counter. Todd's face remained controlled. "That reflection is distorted." The object was an inventory card. "Check when the card was printed," Marcus said. The technician opened the printer log. The inventory card had been generated 6 minutes after the reflected movement. Adrian stepped beside Evelyn. "This is precisely why incomplete images should be handled privately. We should not damage anyone's reputation before experts review the material." Marcus kept his eyes on the screen. "I'm not asking anyone to say what Mr. Briggs put in his pocket. I'm asking you not to erase the 17 seconds when he had the wallet." Evelyn looked at Todd differently now, not with certainty, but without the protection of habit. She ordered Marcus's unpaid suspension converted to paid administrative leave and revoked Todd's access to the camera archive until the review was complete. Todd nodded as though the decision were merely procedural. Then the technician frowned at the audio settings. "This camera records 2 channels," he said. "The server has both, but the copy security submitted only contains 1. Adrian's jaw tightened almost invisibly. "Probably an export error." The technician restored the missing track. Static filled the speakers, followed by the rustle of fabric and Todd's lowered voice speaking into his radio. "Do I handle the envelope the same way as the others? Do I handle the envelope the same way as the others?" Todd's recorded voice asked. Static scratched across the speakers. Then another voice answered, quieter and farther from the microphone. "Keep the scene clean until I get there." No one moved. The air conditioning shut off, leaving the low electrical hum of the monitor exposed. Evelyn looked toward Adrian. He did not look back. "That could be anyone," he said. "The audio quality is poor." The technician enlarged the file information. The call came through a private command channel assigned to Mr. Vale's access card. Adrian adjusted one cuff. "Assigned does not mean used. Devices are shared." "Not executive credentials," Evelyn said. Her voice remained level, but one hand had closed around the edge of the counter. Marcus watched Todd's reflection in the dark monitor. The security supervisor had not raised his voice or stepped away. He simply touched the radio at his belt as though checking whether it was still there. Carla Ruiz asked the technician to preserve the original file and create 2 verified copies. Marcus added only one thing: "Don't play the rest until everyone who needs to be here is in the room." Todd gave a short, humorless breath. "You finally have a piece of audio that sounds useful, and now you want to slow this down. I want it strong enough that nobody can call it a misunderstanding tomorrow." The recorder found inside Robert's wallet was restored that afternoon at an independent data lab. Its corroded battery was bypassed without opening the memory housing, and the chain of custody seals remained intact beneath a camera. The last file was 19 seconds long. For the first 6 seconds, there was only labored breathing and the soft click of something resting against a tabletop. Then Robert Whitmore's voice emerged, weak from stroke therapy but unmistakable. "Marcus Reed, East Harbor. He went back for me." A pause followed, long enough to hear the tremor in Robert's breath. "Find him before I forget." Near the end of the recording, a door opened. Adrian's voice entered the room. "Sir, we have checked. There is not enough information to locate him." Evelyn stopped the playback herself. The red progress bar remained frozen beneath Robert's unfinished breath. She stared at the recorder sealed inside its clear pouch, then at the burned Polaroid beside it. Marcus did not reach for either one. "Is your father all right?" he asked. Evelyn's eyes lifted slowly. "You heard what he said." "I heard a man struggling to speak. Is he all right?" Something in her expression shifted, not into trust, but into shame sharpened by evidence. She turned to the compliance attorney. "Pull every search request made under East Harbor, Marcus Reed, or unidentified rescuer." The records appeared before sunset. Adrian's credentials had opened a file labeled East Harbor Rescuer, Marcus Reed twice during the previous year. The file contained an emergency medical report from August 28, 2012. A volunteer named Marcus Reed had entered the second railcar after the first evacuation, suffered a curved burn around his wrist, and refused a press interview before leaving to care for a neighbor's child. A paramedic's note mentioned a Polaroid taken beside an unidentified male survivor wrapped in a gray emergency blanket. Adrian removed his glasses and cleaned them with a folded cloth. "I reviewed thousands of files for Mr. Whitmore. I may not have remembered one. Incomplete search." His fingers polished the same lens 3 times. Before Evelyn could answer, Carla's phone vibrated against the counter. A woman named Denise Cole had called the union after hearing that another night shift worker had been accused over missing property. Denise had cleaned Harbor Central for 11 years before being fired 18 months earlier. She still possessed the carbon copy of the form she had been pressured to sign. When Carla laid its photograph beside Marcus's and signed statement, the wording matched line for line, including the same misspelling of the word acknowledgement and the same claim that property had remained outside camera coverage for 9 minutes. A wider audit found 5 more former employees with nearly identical records. Most had worked nights. 3 were single parents. 2 had limited English. All had signed after being told cooperation would protect their jobs. Marcus read the names without speaking. Evelyn asked whether he wanted the company to release the audio immediately and clear him before the evening news. Marcus looked at Denise's form. "Not with their names attached unless they agree. This could restore your reputation tonight, and drag 6 people back through the worst day of their lives without warning." He slid the list toward Carla. "Call them first." The printer across the room stopped mid-page. Through the glass wall, the station lights came on 1 row at a time, reflecting Evelyn, Marcus, and Adrian in the same dark surface. The final page emerged slowly. It was an appendix to the security contract, authorizing quarterly bonuses when unresolved property losses stayed below a fixed percentage. Cases closed by employee admission did not count as unresolved losses. Beneath the incentive clause were Adrian Vale's approval initials and Todd Briggs's signature. Evelyn placed the page between the recorder and Denise's form. "This is not staying inside this office," she said. By 6 the next evening, the main atrium of Harbor Central had been rearranged into a hearing room. Folding chairs faced the lost and found counter where Marcus had been ordered to empty his pockets, and a long table stood beneath. The station clock with microphones, water pitchers, and sealed evidence bags laid in careful rows. Union representatives sat beside former night shift employees. Members of the transit board, city regulators, and local reporters filled the remaining seats. Nia stayed in the front row beside her school counselor, holding Marcus's red thermos between both hands. Marcus entered without his uniform jacket. The faded navy shirt beneath it still carried the crease where his disabled badge had rested. He did not look toward the cameras. He looked at Nia, waited until she nodded, then took the chair facing the board. Evelyn Whitmore sat at the center of the table. The burned Polaroid lay sealed near her right hand, but she did not touch it. Adrian Vale asked to speak first. His voice was steady, almost gentle. "What occurred here was regrettable," he said. "But isolated mistakes should not be confused with an organized effort to harm employees." He explained that the bonus clause rewarded efficiency, not false admissions. He said Todd may have mishandled the wallet alone. Then he turned slightly toward Marcus. "Mr. Reed's connection to Mr. Whitmore has understandably created emotion around an otherwise ordinary internal review." A few board members shifted in their chairs. For a moment, the explanation seemed to give them somewhere comfortable to stand. Adrian continued, "The photograph is meaningful to the Whitmore family. It is not evidence of theft, misconduct, or company-wide wrongdoing." Marcus watched him finish before reaching for the first document. He placed the lost property receipt beneath the microphone. "This is where the story starts," he said. 1042. Brown wallet, track 6, delivered unopened. The verified platform footage appeared on the screen. It showed Marcus lifting the wallet with a paper towel, walking past 2 cameras, and placing it beside the logbook in less than 2 minutes. Nia's old phone video followed, its timestamp synchronized with the station announcement in the background. The false 9-minute gap disappeared. Adrian leaned toward his microphone. "No one disputes that the initial timing estimate was imperfect." Marcus did not answer. He placed the unsigned responsibility form beside Denise Cole's carbon copy. Then the screen displayed 5 more nearly identical forms, each carrying the same misspelled word and the same statement about 9 minutes outside camera coverage. Denise sat 3 rows behind Marcus, her hands folded tightly over a worn purse. Adrian's expression softened as though speaking for her benefit. Standardized documents often contain repeated language. That is not evidence of coercion. It was the first moment he seemed to recover the room. A transit board member asked whether any former employee could prove the missing property had not been taken. Todd, seated beside counsel, lowered his eyes but remained silent. Marcus could have turned and pointed at him. Instead, he looked toward Denise. "Their records should not depend on whether mine became famous," he said. "They deserve the same review I received." The atrium quieted. Evelyn signaled to the technician. The raw counter footage appeared, then froze on Todd's reflection in the train window. His hand opened the wallet. A pale rectangle moved toward his coat. Adrian lifted one hand. "A distorted reflection cannot establish what that object was." "That is correct," Marcus said. "So we checked the printer." The inventory card log appeared beside the video. The card Todd claimed to be holding had not been printed until 6 minutes later. The soft scrape of a reporter's pen stopped. Marcus placed the security contract appendix on the table. Quarterly bonuses, reduced unresolved losses, employee admissions excluded from the loss count. Adrian's approval initials sat above Todd's signature. Adrian leaned closer to the microphone. Those incentives were approved through normal channels. Closing cases efficiently protected public funds. Evelyn finally spoke. Did closing them accurately matter? Adrian turned toward her. Of course. Then why did your office instruct security to close them before quarterly reporting? An email appeared on the screen. Resolve outstanding incidents before the numbers are finalized. Adrian read it without blinking. That is ordinary management language. The first restored audio file began playing. Todd's voice filled the atrium. Do I handle the envelope the same way as the others? Static crackled. Adrian's recorded reply followed. Keep the scene clean until I get there. A murmur moved through the chairs, but Adrian raised his palm. That phrase referred to preserving the area. It does not mean planting evidence. For the second time, his explanation was plausible enough to slow the room. Marcus looked toward the technician. Play the part after that. The fuller recording resumed. Todd's voice dropped almost to a whisper. This time the little girl saw me. Adrian answered. Keep her out of the report. Nia's fingers tightened around the red thermos. Marcus turned toward her, not the cameras, and gave a small nod that told her she had done nothing wrong. Then he faced the board again. I am not here to punish anyone with a child's fear, he said. I am here because fear should never be used to write evidence. Adrian asked that Robert's recorder be excluded, arguing that a man recovering from a stroke could not provide reliable identification. Before Evelyn could respond, the doors at the far end of the atrium opened. Robert Whitmore entered in a wheelchair beside his rehabilitation physician, and behind them an investigator carried a sealed pale blue envelope toward the evidence table. The investigator placed the sealed pale blue envelope beneath the white light of the evidence camera. Recovered from a secondary locker assigned to Todd Briggs, she said. The seal number matches the batch issued to Harbor Central Security 18 months ago. No one spoke. The projector displayed a photograph taken by Robert Whitmore's nurse before he left home. The same pale blue paper, the same handwritten initials in the corner, the same narrow crease beneath the flap. Inside were 6 $100 bills, not 800. The serial numbers matched the withdrawal receipt already entered into evidence. Todd's pen slipped from his fingers and struck the table with a small plastic click. His attorney leaned toward him, but Todd did not turn. Adrian stared at the envelope as if refusing to look away could somehow make it less real. Evelyn asked the investigator to continue. The locker log appeared on the screen. Todd had opened it 12 minutes after Marcus surrendered the wallet, then again before dawn, after the first camera export had been created. His access card was the only credential used. Adrian reached for his microphone. This does not establish executive knowledge. His voice was dry now, the smoothness finally gone. No, Evelyn said. The envelope establishes what happened to the money. The audio establishes what you knew about the method. She raised one hand toward the technician. The station clock, Nia's phone video, the raw platform footage, the printer log, and the 17-second reflection appeared side by side. Marcus lifted the wallet at 10:40 and carried it directly to Lost and Found. He placed it beside the logbook at 10:42. Todd opened it after signing the transfer. The inventory card he claimed to be holding did not exist until 6 minutes later. Then the restored recording played once more. Do I handle the envelope the same way as the others? Todd's voice asked. Adrian's reply followed. Keep the scene clean until I get there. No one shifted in the folding chairs now. Even the reporters stopped typing. Evelyn turned toward Robert's physician. The doctor placed 3 photographs on the tray attached to Robert's wheelchair. Marcus, Todd, and a man no one in the room recognized. Mr. Whitmore, she said gently. Point to the person you remember from East Harbor. Robert's right hand trembled above the photographs. His finger passed over Todd, paused near the stranger, then settled on Marcus. Marcus did not move toward him until the doctor nodded. When he stepped close, Robert looked down at the pale, curved scar around Marcus's wrist. His fingers closed weakly around Marcus's hand. Marcus, he said, the word rough from effort. He drew a shallow breath. Thank you. Nia pressed both hands around the red thermos and let out the breath she had been holding. Marcus lowered himself beside the wheelchair until their eyes were level. "You made it out," he said softly. "That was enough." Evelyn placed the burned Polaroid beneath the projector. Marcus's smoke-darkened face appeared. Above the room beside Robert's emergency blanket and the handwritten date, August 28, 2012. Then she replaced it with the image of Marcus returning the wallet. "This photograph proves my father remembered Marcus Reed for 14 years, she said. "It does not prove what happened at this counter." She pointed to the synchronized footage, the receipt, the printer record, the audio, and the sealed envelope. "Those do." Her gaze moved across the board members, employees, and cameras. Marcus returned the wallet intact. He followed procedure. He was detained, threatened with termination, and pressured to sign a false statement before the evidence was reviewed. She paused, then looked at Marcus. "The man we ordered to empty his pockets like a thief is the man who carried my father out of a burning train." The atrium went completely still. The faint rattle of the ventilation grate became audible above them. A page lifted beneath the projector fan and settled again. Somewhere beyond the glass doors, a train bell rang once and faded into the night. Adrian's hand remained suspended over his microphone. Todd kept his eyes on the table. There was no explanation left that sounded like procedure. Evelyn announced that Marcus's record was cleared effective immediately. His lost wages would be restored, and the security contract was suspended pending outside investigation. The 6 former employee cases would be reopened under independent review, and all related files would be transferred to city regulators and labor authorities. She did not offer Marcus money or ask him to forgive anyone. She stepped away from the authority of the microphone and faced him without the table between them. "Mr. Reed, the board will hear your request first." Marcus looked toward Denise and the other former workers, then toward Nia. He rested one hand on the counter where the wallet had first been placed. "I don't want the next person to need a photograph with a powerful man before anyone checks the camera," he said. Evelyn nodded slowly. "Then tell us what must change." Marcus looked at the people whose records had been damaged long before anyone learned his name, and the question hanging over. The silent atrium was no longer whether he would be believed, but what he would choose to do now that everyone was finally listening. The folding chairs emptied slowly after the hearing, their metal legs whispering across the tile, while reporters packed away cameras and city investigators sealed the evidence table. Todd Briggs left through a side corridor with counsel beside him. Adrian Vale remained only long enough to surrender his access card, his face pale beneath the atrium lights. Marcus did not watch either man leave. He stood beside Denise Cole and the other former employees while Evelyn's legal team explained, in plain language, what would happen next. Outside review, corrected records, restored wages where evidence supported it, and no public release of anyone's name without permission. Nia sat on the edge of the lost and found counter, both hands around the red thermos. "Are we going home now?" she asked. Marcus looked at the station clock, then at the glass door that had locked behind him 2 nights earlier. "Yeah," he said. "We're going home." The weeks that followed were quieter than the hearing, but they mattered more. City regulators confirmed that Todd had altered reports, hidden the envelope, and removed audio from the security export. Adrian had approved the incentive system, ignored warnings, and continued using forced admissions because they kept quarterly losses low. Both men lost their positions, and the case moved beyond Whitmore Transit to labor authorities and prosecutors. No one was dragged back into the atrium for another public spectacle. Denise and 5 other former workers received corrected employment files, written apologies, lost wages, and the choice to return or move forward with clean records. Denise declined her old job but accepted a seat on the new Independent Oversight Committee. Marcus's suspension vanished from his file. His missing pay was restored, and the company issued a formal statement saying he had followed every required step when he returned Robert's wallet. Evelyn offered no private check and made no promise she could not ethically keep. Instead, she asked Marcus to help design the policies he had requested. Cameras had to be preserved before any employee search. Workers could not be pressured into signing same-day admissions. Children were excluded from investigative procedures. Security bonuses could no longer depend on closing cases through employee blame. A child care program for night shift workers began after Nia told a counselor that the worst part of that night was not walking toward the bus stop. It was wondering whether her father would still have a job in the morning. When a community safety training position opened months later, Marcus applied through the same process as everyone else. He completed the written exam, emergency response simulation, and panel interview without Robert or Evelyn in the room. The hiring committee selected him for his years at Harbor Central, his rescue training, his careful reconstruction of the Wallet's route, and the way he had protected other employees when he could have protected only himself. On his first morning in the new role, Marcus pinned his old M. Reed badge inside his locker rather than throwing it away. The faded plastic no longer represented the night he had been treated as disposable. It reminded him that dignity had remained his even when the door would not open. Robert invited Marcus and Nia to dinner a few weeks later. The meal was simple: roast chicken, vegetables, and cornbread Robert's nurse had helped him prepare. There were no photographers, contracts, or gifts waiting beneath the table. After dinner, Robert placed the brown leather wallet between them. He lifted the burned Polaroid from its loosened lining and handed Nia a copy showing both the photograph and the words written behind it. "He kept your dad," Robert said slowly. Nia looked at Marcus. "You mean the picture?" Robert shook his head and touched 2 fingers to his chest. "Here." The room became quiet, not from shock, but because everyone understood. Marcus looked down at the younger man in the photograph, covered in soot and unaware that the stranger beside him would remember his name for 14 years. He slid the copy toward Nia. "You keep it." Evelyn earned her place in their lives by moving slowly. She attended public oversight meetings, answered difficult questions without sending Adrian's replacement, and continued the reforms when the news cameras stopped coming. When she visited Nia's school performance, she arrived alone and sat in the back row. She did not assume she belonged beside Marcus. She waited until he saw her and chose to move 1 seat over. There was no grand confession between them, only respect becoming trust, one careful act at a time. When Nia stepped onto the stage, she found Marcus, Robert, and Evelyn standing in 3 different places, all watching her without asking her to carry what the adults had failed to fix. After the applause faded, Marcus remained still for a moment beneath the soft auditorium lights, the old photograph safe in Nia's hands and the red thermos resting beside his chair. Kindness had never made him weak, and silence had never made him small. It had simply carried the truth until the world was finally quiet enough to hear it.